Okay, so what I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about foreshortening and how it applies to doing a drawing that helps you make something appear really realistic. Typically, when we go to draw something, what we're doing is we are putting something on a piece of paper that is just a bunch of marks, and it's our job to make people look at the paper and say, not say, oh, it looks like it was done in pencil, but they'll say, oh, look, it's a whatever the noun is. So, for example, here's a picture of a pine cone that I drew, and what we want to do is when people look at it, we want them to look into it. We want them to like have their eyes go right into the picture. We want it to look 3D. We don't want it to look like something that's sitting right on top of the paper itself. When we do that, they've called it telling a lie to tell the truth. So this is not a pine cone. This is a bunch of graphite on a piece of paper. And so what we have to do is when we draw the object, we have to put down lines and shapes and values that help people believe that this is a pine cone. And when they look at it, they'll say, wow, it looks really 3D. And they're not thinking about the fact that it's graphite on paper. And one of the challenges that we get when we're doing something like this is that not everything is going to look like the left side of our brain wants it to look. So if you remember back to when we talked about right side, left side of the brain and how we perceive things, the left side of our brain likes to make order or sense of the world. So it saves visual images in a kind of a primitive way for most of us, that are very simple and easy to pull up, that are not stressful for the left side. And usually that means doing things very systematically. The problem is when you draw something from life, it's not always very systematic. So for example, when I drew this pine cone, some of these scales went off to the side like this. And that's how we would picture those scales looking, off to the side, off to the side. And that's exactly how they were shaped. The trouble that we end up with, that becomes the challenge for our brain, is that some of these scales were coming toward me. And so the left side of our brain totally rebels against those kind of shapes, saying, no, that doesn't fit my preconceived idea of what these scales look like, because they're coming toward you, and we have to figure out a way to draw things that are kind of coming toward us. And those things would be called foreshortened, because they're not presented in a kind of a lateral way. They're coming toward us. Okay. Here's another example of drawing something or thinking about something in a right side of our brain, left side of our brain way. So we have a polar bear here, and the polar bear, this is how the left side of our brain would save the image. It says, oh, this is nice and simple. We have a back end of the polar bear. We have a front end of the polar bear. It has 4 legs. It has ears and an eyes and a nose and a mouth and all those things. And this is kind of like the snapshot that the left side of our brain saves. So if I wanted to draw this and use mostly the left side of my brain, this would be the relaxing view that we would use. Okay, so I would set it up and I would come up with a drawing, a pencil drawing that is a very much left side of our brain image. So I looked at it, I looked at my paper, I looked back and forth, and created this. And it's very lateral, it's very flat. We have the back end, the front end. This is what the left side of our brain really likes. And we didn't have to think too much about it. We just kind of had to get the proportions right and then get the shading in. And going from back to front was pretty much just a matter of getting things lined up where they seem to line up, and getting the shading and the shadows in. Okay, so that's kind of the way I looked at it first when I drew it. When we're talking about foreshortening, what happens is we have to stop using the left side of our brain and naming things like, oh, there's the paw, there's the ear, there's the nose. And we have to think about them purely as lines and shapes and totally disengage our brain from thinking this is a polar bear. So what happens if, I don't know if I have enough room to do this, what happens if we try to draw a polar bear looking at us? Okay, looking straight at us. That changes everything. Even when I turned like this and I suggested we might draw it like this, you might have felt something weird happening in your head. I call it like a waviness, where the left side is going, whoa, wait. And it's because it changes the whole direction of it. So instead of seeing front, middle, back, top and bottom. We're seeing left side says, I don't know what I'm seeing. This thing, no, I don't know how to draw this. And then if we even turn it like a 3/4 view, the left side of our brain rebels even more because it says, well, I can't see the back. I can't see the tail. How many legs are on there? Okay. So when we go to draw a polar bear so that it looks 3D like it's coming at us, we can't think about what the shapes or what the nouns are, or what the legs are like. Okay, so this is a foreshortened polar bear. So he's coming at us. We can't see the back. We can't hardly see any of the stomach. We only see 3 legs. Okay, so foreshortening, what it does is it changes everything about what the left side of our brain expects to see in the drawing, in the object, in the process. And so it almost fritzes out. The left side says, oh my gosh, where do I start? How do I do this? And we have to forget about the size of the head, the size of the body, and just simply think about how things are related to everything else. And it doesn't even matter what they truly are in terms of nouns. So when I drew this, when we look at the polar bear like this, just a sideways polar bear, we know how the eyes and the nose and the ears all line up, and it looks like they're just a slight bit taller than the back. When I looked at the polar bear this way, a lot of that vanished, and I had to just say, okay, I can't even think about it front, middle, and back anymore. I have to purely look at it as, all right, what do I draw first? And so we might start with these shapes here. And then we would not even name them. We'd say, okay, that shape's there. This one's a little lower than that one. This kind of shaped like a diamond. This is really dark in the middle and it curves up a little at the end. Then when it comes to these parts, we have to look proportionately to say, well, in real life, this part from here to here, which is from here to here, is really long. It's really, really long. But because it's foreshortened, because it's looking at us, this part is very, very, very short. It was very narrow when I looked at it. And the left side of your brain tends to not like information like that. It says, well, no way. The body is way bigger than the width of the head. And it's true. In real life it is. But this is a foreshortened view. So we have to really figure out how wide is that really. So when we look at it, when I looked at the polar bear, I had to decide proportionally, okay, the distance from here to here, when I was looking at the real thing, looked like about the distance from here to the edge of the mouth. Can you see, like if I put my pencil there, these two distances are about the same. So I had to try to find other relationships that help me work out how big that is. We know that all the legs are the same width on a polar bear, but because this is foreshortened and because we can't see the whole back leg, this one appears very much smaller than this one because it's kind of tucked behind it. Okay, the height is pretty normal. The height doesn't really change too much. Where the real challenges with the foreshortening come in are getting the front to the back. Okay, getting this looking like there's something behind the face. Okay, one other detail that constantly mystifies and stifles people is the fact that when I drew this, when I looked at the polar bear, I could only see 3 legs. And the left side might be really strong and say, there's 4 legs there. I know there's 4 legs there. We have to draw 4 legs. And I've seen times when students have drawn I draw beanie babies in some of the classrooms, and they draw a beanie baby, and they draw the whole beanie baby, and sometimes you can't see the back side of the beanie. You see the 2 front legs and the back leg that's closest to you. And they'll do this beautiful, accurate, fluffy little beanie baby that's all scrunched and got wrinkles. And then at the very end, they stick an extra leg up on top because it's so powerful for the left side to want to say, no, in the real world, there's 4 legs. You have to draw 4 legs. And it's the same when we work on this. We would look at it and say, well, look how wide that face is and how narrow the back is. But I'm hoping that when your impression was when you looked at this, you said, oh, that looks like a polar bear walking toward me. So when I drew all these lines, I was creating a lie to tell the truth about what it looks like when that polar bear is walking toward you, when it's looking at you like this. Okay? So the foreshortening changes all the proportions that are true in real life. You have to draw them fake on your paper because this is fake. The width of the polar bear's back in real life is not this narrow, but that's what I saw. And I just had to purely look at it and say, well, it's that narrow, that's what I have to draw. And if it looks this wide in the front, well, that's what I have to draw. Okay, we don't get the same problem when we're drawing a polar bear like this. Okay, when we draw it like this is very logical. The left side says, okay, I got this. I can even measure to see how far it is from the tail to here and from here to here or from here to here. We can work out whatever measures we want when we're drawing in a kind of a lateral way like this. All that goes out the window when things get foreshortened and something is different. And it's the same if you're drawing flowers that are, one of the examples that I like to give is if I ask people to draw a daisy, the vast majority of people would draw, I'm going to draw this extra dark, would draw a daisy that has petals that look something like this, because that's the top view. That's what the left side of our brain saves and says, that be a daisy, because it's got a petal, it's got a middle, it's got a certain number of petals, which I probably didn't count, and then we could go ahead and do the texture. But daisies aren't always a top view. Sometimes when we're looking at daisies, we're looking at a side view, in which case the middle part, we have to look super carefully to see that instead of a circle, maybe it's more of an oval shape. And the petals, some of them might be more of a side view. Some of them might kind of go up like the real shape that we see. And then the ones that are closest to us might have really weird, goofy shapes that in real life, I mean, that's a lie. Daisy petals are not that shape at all in real life. But when a flower is tipped and they're foreshortened and they're coming at us, we have to figure out what that shape looks like when it's a 3D shape. And these would be the foreshortened petals, because they're foreshortened because they're coming at us, and we have to draw them in a shape that is absolutely not a daisy shape, a daisy petal shape. But when you're done and you get and actually those are not foreshortened either, when you get your petals done, people won't say, well, that's not what daisy petals are shaped like. They're going to say, there, we've got a daisy, except for that circle there. So the foreshortening is a real trick. Part of the problem is because we have binocular vision, and when things are coming at us, we can't see a flat image. We see a 3D image, and that kind of plays games with our head. So sometimes when you're drawing from real life and things are kind of coming at you and you're trying to figure out how to draw something foreshortened, to get rid of that binocular vision, I recommend just shut one eye. When you shut one eye, what happens is it flattens everything out, it gets rid of the binocular vision, and you can see exactly what shape that you need to draw. Same with bird beaks, same with fingers. If you think about the Uncle Sam Wants You poster, he's pointing his finger right at you. And if you come up with an image like that, you can Google it online and take a really objective look at how the artist drew the finger of Uncle Sam pointing at you. We know it's his hand, we know it's a finger, we know it's pointing at you, but but the finger that's pointing is not shaped like a real finger. So that's a little bit of a lesson what foreshortening is like. It's a little bit of a challenge because you have to forget about what things are shaped like in real life and just look at what is coming at you, so that you can objectively say, oh, well, that's not a real thick leg, it's showing up as just a thin leg, or all those different things. So hope that helps, and good luck drawing this week. Thanks, see you later.